and welcome. Today I want to talk about a blouse pattern that will go year-round. The reason I'm doing this blouse are several. I'll tell you all about them, but I really think this is a blouse that just works across the board for so many occasions, so many reasons. We're using pattern 615, Cathy's blouse. I mean, it's going to look like this, but it's not going to look like this. I'm discarding all of the pieces except for three, and that's the front, the back, and the sleeve. That's all I'm going to use. So this came about in a couple reasons. I've received several emails lately that have said, you know, I've got beautiful silks, show me how to use them. And this is a new silk that we're just putting up, and it's absolutely beautiful. And it's just a perfect pattern fabric combination to me. I just really like the two of them. So many of you, when you have the blouse fabric and you want to do something, you go to the classic blouse, which is beautiful, don't get me wrong. But this is a much simpler process. And what you want to do when you're looking at blouses and any fabric, especially a silk, because, you know, they're higher price point, you're a little more nervous because they're silk, you want to go to a pattern that'll give you a lot of confidence. So what I did is I made this first, and I would suggest you do the same. I made it first just in an ITY knit, and then I transferred little things I learned or little this or whatever into the silk. So with the silk, keep in mind in this particular case, I've only got three pieces. I've only got a front, a back, and a sleeve. So very easy to work your way through this, regardless of your sewing skills. In this particular case, I wanted you to see, especially as we go through this, that it's serged. There's no French seams, there's none of that. And even though it's a sheer, you just can't see any of that on the back side. So, gosh, there's so much I want to talk about. Let's first talk about the pattern. So the second thing that kind of tipped me to doing this was a workshop in Portland. One of the women in the class had a blouse that she had bought. She wore it under a lot of suits, and she just loved this blouse. It was pattern 615, okay? It was just a little bit simplified. And one of the changes was that when you come up, this is the center back, when you come up, it was 2 inches higher, 1.5 inches higher here. On the sleeves, as you come up, 1.5 inches higher here, going to 1 inch higher on this side. And then of course the front, as you come up, it was 1 inch higher here. So you're just adding, you're just bringing it closer into the neck. So I'm going to talk about the differences between this one and the one I have on, because all of these are variables. So sometimes when I'm at a workshop and I look at that and I see it as so simple, I recognize that you all don't see it the same way, and I really appreciate that she would say, I don't know how to do this, can you help me? So boom, 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 a couple things. We had the blouse she wanted, and she was just really happy to go. We fitted it and everything else. But there's so many other things that can be done with this blouse that I wanted to show you that as well. All right, so number one, it's great for a sheer. The blouse she brought in at the neck edge as they turned over, and this is just serged on the inside and then turned inside. But they had 2 layers. So they had another layer that was, in her case, it was black, but it doesn't matter. The sleeves were not. The sleeves were still sheer. It was just the body. And that is one way to address a fabric that is lightweight. The other way to do it is as I'm showing you, because what you see is my blouse really has more versatility as I go from a darker color, being black underneath, to a lighter color, which in this case is white, beige, blue. I mean, there's so many, and there's a lot of variety that I get with that blouse by not sewing it with a permanent underlayer, which is what it's called. It's called, you know, the second layer. So it isn't that it even is easier, which it is easier, but I would recommend that you simply sew them separate and leave your sheer fabric as sheer so that you can put other things underneath. And again, this is a great reason why a tank plays a part of your wardrobe. So as you have those base pieces, you merely put under here what works for the occasion you're doing it in. But this neckline is beautiful for a suit. It can be a knit or a woven. It doesn't make a difference. Remember that the two differences are, can I get it off and on? And this neckline is elastic, so I can. That's no problem. And then can I move? And because this original pattern is for a blouse, when I do it for a knit, like what I have on, I still have plenty of mobility, and yet it doesn't need to have negative ease. A knit does not have to have negative ease. It's just that when we're sewing a t-shirt, you want it to. In this particular case, because I'm using the casing, it's bringing it in, it's giving it shape, and that's what I would want it to have. So going back to this one, I want to point out some details that I did that I really like. Keep in mind, I didn't use all the pieces in the pattern for the sleeve. I left out a couple pieces. You can do it exactly as the pattern, but I just left this straight. And then I had seen this on a sheer blouse at the store. All they did was put an elastic in there with a wider band. So I used a 1-inch wide piece of elastic instead of a really narrow casing. And I like that. I really like it on. It still fits beautifully if you put it on under a jacket. It's very slim, it's very light, and it just is a little bit different. I did do the casing at the waist, and when I do a casing like this, what I'll do is I'll take fold over elastic and put it on the inside because it stretches, and then I just run my elastic through it. And anytime I'm using elastic, I use my 2-inch wide elastic, and then I just trim it down. You can trim it down to here 1 inch. At the waistband, I did a 1/4 inch. So that 2-inch wide elastic is your best friend because you can make it whatever width you want it to be. And then again, 1/4 inch here at the neckline. And then at the finish, what I did is I just ironed on a few little crystals that gave it a little bit of just a touch of a focal point right there at the neckline. And I just think it's beautiful. And again, I wanted you to look on the inside, not that you can see too terribly much, but it's just serged and left. You just can't see it. On this particular raglan seam right here, that is a serge seam and left. But again, and I use black thread just as it doubles over under the fabric. You just can't see it. So there's no need for French seams unless you just want to. It's really not a critical issue. So this, as you can see, is a very simple pattern for a silk piece of fabric, and it's just beautiful. It can be worn by itself. It can be worn with jeans. It can be worn to work under a suit. It has such a wide variety of uses for it that I think you'll just absolutely love it. Very easy to do. Again, I just extend up everything that has to do with the neckline. I'm just going to bring it in. I gave you 2 in the back, 1 in the front, and then you take, 1.5 of the sleeve, you taper it all the way around. But it could be anything. You could bring it in closer if you wanted. This circumference is what makes a difference. And this circumference measures 21. So when you're deciding on your elastic, the more, the smaller the elastic is, it just brings it in closer and closer and closer. The one I have on is measuring 23. So you can see it's a little farther down from my neck. That can even be decided after you, make it all. But don't try to get from the pattern to 21 without adding and raising it up a little bit, or the arm starts to pull up too high into the armpit. So add what you want to, and again, where I started was 1 inch in the front, 1 inch here, 1.5 inches here to 2 inches at the center back, and then I made the elastic smaller, so it just pulled it up and made it almost like a little jewel neck. It's just right there close to the neck. All right, so then I want to switch your attention to my fun little one that I did out of a border print. So this fabric is fabric 1751 on our site. I always forget to say this, and people have asked me over and over, please say this. This is 1751. It's brand new. It's a Rebecca Taylor. It's a silk. Absolutely a beautiful piece of fabric. You can see that there's like little, I don't know, like a little soutache added in there. It's really beautiful. Be sure and put that at center front when you're cutting the blouse, or be aware of it. You don't have to put at center front, but you want to stagger center front between it. You don't want to just not pay attention to it. You don't have to treat it like a stripe. It will work beautifully, but just make sure that a line is at center front, and usually that's how it's done. It marks center front. Then this particular fabric is just really fun. I'll show you the length of this fabric because it changes, and it goes from light to dark to light to dark to light again. So you have lots of areas to do fun things with border prints. So if you notice, what I did is I put the bottom of the blouse here. It's almost like got a border again at the bottom. I'll show that to you. So the bottom of the blouse went down here, and then of course the thickest part, and then this was the top of the blouse. Now I cut this one 2 inches longer than what I cut this one to me, this wasn't going to be worn with leggings by itself. That's to me. It was going to be worn more just with a jean or a dress pant. This one, for me, was going to be worn with a legging. So I did it 2 inches lower. And then I cut the neckline exactly the same, but because the elastic is longer, I just didn't pull it up as much. This is an ITY knit, and when you can, when you're lining up your pattern, your underseam here, you want to go on the same place across the print that this underseam goes to. So as I have this big print coming down here, and I put the largest part of the print at my hips because I'm always wanting to look as thin as possible. So this portion of wherever I put that on the print is the same as that portion of wherever I want to put that on the print. That way, as you put your arms down, and you can see that all my prints match and go across. It doesn't have to be exact, but you get the idea that it really goes well together. In this particular case too, I just added a little zipper in the front. The blouse that we had in the workshop had a little cut opening, had a little slit with a little button. You know, I didn't want to do that on a knit. I didn't think any of that was necessary. The zipper is not a functional zipper. It's completely decorative. And so I just wanted to show you that. This particular fabric is 1742. Just love the border, but you can see where the same pattern takes it from such an office look, or not an office, but a dressy look and really beautiful silk, to just an everyday casual, something that you can take and do whatever you want with. So I really wanted you to see 615. It was, as I put out this pattern, it was meant for simplicity, and you can simplify it. I even went down to the 3 pieces, elastic, just a few little crystals here at the neckline just to give it a little bit of bang. Just beautiful, just simply beautiful. Lightweight, cool for summer, and perfect for whatever you're wanting to do it with. So from Silhouette Patterns, happy sewing.